You ever notice how Caribbean people could be living in Canada, America, England for 15, 20, 30 years and still refer to the islands as back home? Like, no matter how long you've been gone, no matter where you've built a life or raised your kids, it's still not home, it's just where you live. And here's the funny thing about it. You could be paying your mortgage, raising your family, have your name on every government ID in your new country. But let a Caribbean person ask you where you're from. You're not saying New Jersey. You're saying, I'm from back home. You know, wherever your country is. And you say it with a pride that makes sense to no one else except us.
Where you going?
Because back home isn't just a place. It's a feeling. It's a rhythm. It's your childhood in one sentence. But here's where it gets even deeper. Even people who left when they were kids, who barely remember the name of the streets or how to cook green banana properly, still say back home. Because it's not about memory. It's about belonging. You could be freezing in Toronto or catching 3 buses in London, but let a Caribbean voice play in the grocery store speaker, or let Murder She Wrote come on by accident. Boom, you're back home. If only for a second. And that second is everything. Because here's the truth. We don't always say out loud. A lot of us left, but we never fully arrived. We left for better jobs, for safety, for opportunity. But a part of our soul stayed behind in the mango tree, in the standpipe mornings, in the gospel music playing while you're wiping down the furniture or the fridge on a Saturday morning. And you know it's true because even after decades, Caribbean people still talk about growing back home. Like it's next week. Next year, I'm going back home for a few weeks. Me soon buy land back home. Yo, I'm building something back home. That something might still be concrete blocks and a zinc roof for the past 11 years. But the dream never did. Here's the twist though. Sometimes we romanticize back home so much that we forget why we left. We forget sometimes stretching food and how hard it was. How hard the struggle really was. But that struggle, it never robbed us of joy. And maybe that's why it sticks with us so hard. Because back home is where we knew laughter without money, peace without luxury, and riches without being rich. Yeah, let me ask you something. Did your Caribbean childhood feel poor? Because based on what people are saying in some of the comments of my videos, we had nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. We had barefoot races, sugarcane chewing, Sunday rice and peas, a cold soda from the shop up the road that you had to return the bottle for. So when you're in a high-rise condo now with electric heat and Amazon Prime membership, you still find yourself saying, boy, back home had a vibe, you know? And don't get me started on Sundays, because only Caribbean people can understand this. Sunday isn't just a day, it's a ritual. It started with gospel music blasting, the smell of fried plantain from 7 a.m., a clean house, a full belly, and family noise in the background. That's back home. So when Sunday coming fine, and everything quiet, and you're eating microwave food and watching Netflix alone, it hits you. You're not home. You're just here. Now this part right here, this is where it gets emotional. Some of us say back home so much because it's the only thing that keeps us grounded. It reminds us we come from something real, from people who sacrificed, from a culture that's loud, loving, and unbreakable. And you know what's even funnier? We pass it down. Your kids who were born outside of the Caribbean, even them start saying back home like they know what it means. They never had to hand wash school uniforms or eat bun and cheese on Good Friday like it's a holy commandment. But because you say it with so much conviction, they adapt the phrase too. Mommy, when we going back home? Daddy, back home have mangoes all year round, right? They don't even know the potholes or the mosquitoes or the 2-hour church service that could humble a grown man, but they still say it. That's the power of cultural memory. You don't just remember home. You carry it, you teach it, you pass it on like seasoning. It's mystical. But let me ask you this. How long have you been living outside the Caribbean? And do you still call the Caribbean back home? Or maybe I should ask you like a foreigner would. How long you've been here? 15, 20 years? Is your whole family here? Sometimes they get so nosy. But you ever notice how back home can turn into a whole conversation starter even among strangers? You could be at work, minding your business, and you hear someone quietly say, "Why? When I went back home last summer," and suddenly you are in it. Where you from? Jamaica, Trinidad, Grenada? And within 5 minutes, you're swapping stories like you knew each other since childhood. That's the magic of back home. It's a password, a secret handshake. But here's the funny part. People who've never ever been to your island with argue with you about it. You'd meet someone born and raised in Canada who never stepped foot in Jamaica, but their parents drilled it so hard into them that they claim back home, like they earned it. Like one guy in my threads comments said, I'm born and raised in Canada, but I still call it back home. And I get it. Home is not just about where you are, it's about who raised you. It's about the food on the table and the stories your parents told you and the accent they refused to let go. And this comment here had me weak. Girl, I went home for a week. You notice how nobody ever says I went to Trinidad or I visited Grenada? Nope, it's always I went home. Even if you only went for a few days. Even if you spend the entire week sweating in the heat, slapping mosquitoes and cussing at how expensive the groceries have gotten, it's still home. And you come back with 10 pounds of fried fish buried in your suitcase, telling everybody, boy, nothing sweet like back home. And don't act like you don't over-romanticize it. We all do it. We forget about the lizard that ran through the kitchen at night, or the dog barking like it's on a security payroll. But what we do remember? The peace. The sound of rain on the zinc roof. The laughter of your auntie telling some story with too much hand movement. And maybe that's why we'll always say back home with so much weight. Because no matter how much life changes abroad, the feeling stays the same. Now, let's talk about the culture shock. When you've been away too long, going back home feels like time travel. Like one woman said in the comment, Canada isn't our home. We live here, but it never felt like ours. And she's right. Because you could live in Canada for 20 years, but the moment you hear someone frying sprat, or you smell curry goat, or you hear hot stepper playing at some random barbecue, you feel like you never left. Your soul goes, we're home now. But the truth is, it's more than nostalgia. Back home is also about family. As one person said, it's not about peace, it's about family. Family is what locks that word home into place. Because when your grandmother's voice is still on the phone every Sunday evening asking if you eat, when your cousin's still calling you with island gossip like they're CNN, when every funeral or wedding forces you to book a flight, whether you have the money or not, you realize no matter how far you go, you never left home. And here is where it hits deep. Sometimes saying back home is our way of holding on to our identity. Living abroad can chip away at you. The cold, the rust, the bills, the feeling like you always have to prove yourself. But when you say back home, it's like a little piece of defiance. It's like you're saying, I might live here, but I belong there. Let's be honest though, we're guilty. Caribbean people will pack barrels, send money, and talk about building a house back home for 20 years. And that house is still blueprint. Still next year. But you know what? That hope keeps us going. We're working here, surviving here, hustling here, so we can go back home. And don't pretend like you don't see it in your own family. How many of you have parents who've lived abroad for half their life, but still plan to retire back home? It doesn't matter if they can't handle the heat anymore, or if they've forgotten half their cousin names. They still say, I'm going back home for good enough. And you know what? They mean it. Because no matter how many years pass, home still calls you back. That tells you everything about Caribbean roots. They go deep. You can't uproot it. It's in the way we cook, the way we laugh, the way we talk, and the way we gather. And I know I'm gonna see a ton of things in the comments, but let me hit you with a truth bomb. Home isn't perfect, but it's ours. And maybe that's why we'll never stop saying it. Because when you leave home, the world tries to teach you that you don't belong anywhere. But saying back home is a way of planting your flag again. It's a way of reminding you of who you are. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you went back home? And what was the first thing you did when you landed? Was it a cold thing, a party, or a trip to the river? Because I know everybody has their own first stop ritual. And let me just say this. Even if you'd never go back as often as you want, or if you're working hard in a foreign land just trying to make ends meet, remember this. The spirit of back home is in you. The resilience, the humor, the warmth, you carry it everywhere you go. So the next time someone asks you where you're from, say it with your chest, back home. Because remember, it's not just the destination, it's the journey. Bless up.